The teleportation has gone wrong. Ah!
This episode of Getting Tabled is brought to you by Valhalla Hobby. Use code TABLE to get 5% off any order over $100. One use only. Thank you for sponsoring us, valhallahobby.com.
Brought to you by some guys on the internet.
This is Getting Tabled.
With your hosts Jason the Bruce,
You guy!
George the Yank,
I hope you're all entertained by my inaptitude.
Jason aka Major Socks.
We've been doing this and talking about various stuff. One of the stuff.
Now sit back, relax, and get tabled.
Hello, future people, and welcome to episode 125 of Getting Tabled with your host, episode 125? Yes.
Yes.
With your host, the Bruce.
Hello, folks. Welcome to another episode. It's just me and George this week because Major Socks is... I don't remember. He's with some sort of family. I think it's his wife's family. I could be wrong.
Yeah, and it's George and I.
Me and George are here. What you people that are watching us on YouTube don't know is that opening, we always are posing and stuff for the camera, and it never actually comes across because it's completely replaced. Also, I dressed up for you today, George.
Oh, how sweet of you.
It's been an interesting fortnight, to say the least. We've had some really good stuff. There's some stuff that we've predicted that's happening that I think are a lot worse than people are realizing it is.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I think this is probably going to be the last time we have that conversation, maybe.
Well, there's going to be one last conversation, and it will be the final conversation. So,
yeah.
But let's do this.
Newly received or noteworthy information, especially about recent or important events.
So we're starting with something a little bit different. A couple of months ago, there was a game released called Star Trek Away Missions, and we haven't really covered it up until now because it came out at a time where there was a lot of stuff that came out, so I kind of just left it. There's been some expansions that came out, though, so I want to before we look at the expansions, I just very quickly want to look at that starter set, just purely because it'll give some context as to what we're talking about. So this is a board game, not a war game. It's a board game. It does have miniatures, and you'll notice they're extremely cartoony miniatures. Like, they are very much big head cartoony type miniatures. I don't think they're awful. They're very much Marmite, though. Like, people seem to either really love them or really hate them. There doesn't seem to be much middle ground on this.
So here's my thought and reasoning. What's one of the hardest things to sculpt and reproduce and remanufacture accurately at scale? People.
Yeah.
There's a reason why the Simpsons only have 3 fingers. There's a reason why everything's disproportionate, is because it's really, really hard to replicate and reproduce. I think this looks okay.
Yeah. I mean, this is also a relatively cheap board game, too. I mean, it's not cheap, but it's certainly not expensive. It's like, this is something that's being sold at mass retail. This is by Gale Force 9 too, so it's a decent company with a decent reputation. There's been some decent reviews of it out there. It's getting like fairly decent reviews. Like, it's not groundbreaking, the game of the year, but it's getting some decent reviews. So the game is set up so that it's asymmetrical. It's not even. It's designed that way on purpose. There's more of the Borg than there are of the Enterprise, but they don't all turn up at the same time, and they've got different missions that work very differently. And that kind of continues across into the expansions. So the 2 expansions I wanted to look at today are Picard and Kirk. There's also actually, I might even look at Scotty too, but let's look at those 2 first. So Picard is another Enterprise crew, obviously, but this one's being led by Picard. And we have
Wesley.
Is that who's meant to be in the background?
I believe that's supposed to be Wesley in the background. Let me see if I can zoom in.
I'm terrible with the names of the characters.
That appears to be Wesley with Jordy LaForge, Beverly Crusher, and Deanna Troy.
Deanna Troy is the one I was struggling with, yeah. And again, it continues being very, very cartoony. But
I will say this:
I think
Patrick Stewart. Patrick Stewart has the perfect head to do big and cartoony.
Yep. Yeah, he really does.
And Sir Patrick, if you hear me say that, I mean with the most respect I possibly can.
I have a photo with Picard, and I love it. I treasure it. And we also have Kirk, because, well, you eventually have to go back and do the originals. Oh, hang on. I must have clicked on the wrong one. No, I haven't clicked on the wrong one. What you'll notice when you look at the Kirk one is when you click on the miniatures, it shows Picard again.
Yep. Look at the game box. I will zoom in. It looks like we got, of course, Spock, Chekhov, and I can't identify the other one.
Yeah, I can't. You can't. I tried zooming in a little, but I can't quite make out who it is either.
My guess it would be McCoy or Sulu. It's going to be one of those two.
It's not Sulu. I don't think it's Sulu. I could be wrong.
Well, let's look at the Scotty one, because
the Scotty one is not out yet. But Sulu is Sulu's in the Scotty one.
Yeah, that's Sulu, Uhura, and looks like a random red shirt.
Yeah, it may be somebody's. Oh, hang on, it actually says it's Leslie.
You got names down at the bottom. Yeah, Leslie. So yeah, it's a random red shirt probably.
That probably means that I can go back to Picard and they don't tell you. Never mind.
What does Kirk say? Contains Kirk, Spock, Chekhov, and McCoy.
Hey, I was right. I like being right. Sometimes. So, like, it's a fairly simple thing. I mean, you've also got the Duras sisters. This is an expansion that's already out, and this is very much. No, it's just Klingons. Apparently, from a playstyle perspective, the Klingons are very much, like aggressive and like kind of how you would expect them to play.
Yeah, but the Duras sisters are dishonorable Topa.
Oh, okay. I don't remember the Duras sisters. I remember Chancellor Gowron.
Yeah, so the Duras sisters are the equivalent of dude, I can't even think of anything. They're the spy master backstabbers. Like, they worked with the Romulans a lot.
Oh, okay, yep, nope, they're, yep, definitely. Speaking of the Romulans, there is another. Again, this is a box set that's already out, but we do have a Romulan set as well.
Ooh, it's got Tasha Yar's daughter in it.
I don't remember who that is. I did watch the original series. I'm not someone that really watches the original series because I prefer Next Generation. That's just the one that really landed with me.
Sela was the daughter of Tasha Yar. Tasha Yar was the original head of security aboard the Enterprise D. She was killed by Arma Skin of Evil, and then there was an episode of Next Generation where the Enterprise C traveled forward in time, thus causing a rift, and the Klingon and the Federation were at war, and Tasha Yar went back in time since she was already dead to help out the Enterprise C. She survived, hooked up with a Romulan, and had a daughter named Sela.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yep, no, that makes sense. So Star Trek is one of these things where, like, it's been kind of very unlucky as a franchise with games. Like, there is essentially an equivalent for X-Wing that actually came out first. But X-Wing came out and kind of blew it out of the water.
It was Star Wars Attack Wing. I think it was a Star Trek Fleet Command is what it was called. Who was that?
I don't remember. But they seem to have hit the nail on the head with this one pretty well. It's been accepted fairly well. It's been reviewed fairly well. There's differing opinions on whether people like the boxes or not, because they kind of displayed to look really good on the shelf. But
it's Star Trek Attack Wing.
Oh, like, it's Attack Wing. Okay.
Yeah, it's. And I will say this. So, if you couldn't tell, Bruce, I know quite a few things or two about Star Trek, and I do thoroughly love and enjoy that franchise. And I will not crap on Star Wars or Stargate and those, because those are fantastic intellectual properties as well. But I will say this: when it comes to the success of toys and games and stuff like that, Star Trek there's something about the intellectual property. It makes great TV, it makes great movies, but it doesn't work for expanding out from that.
I think part of the problem historically with... Because I watched... Did you see the TV show The Toys That Made Us? It's a Netflix special.
Yes.
There's
I've
part
watched
of that
some of
that
it.
touched on the Star Trek universe, and as much as, yes, I know this is not a toy channel, but historically, kind of, people just kind of threw anything they could at Star Trek to see what worked, as opposed to Star Wars, where it was very, very carefully done.
Well, so here's the thing, and this will be the last little tangent on this. So Star Wars, right? You had the Empire, you had the Rebels, right? You had this good and evil balance.
It also
lends
itself better.
Right, yeah. And then you have like some other factions that, they work with or they're against. And like everything gets a lot of almost equal coverage, right?
Mm-hmm.
Star Trek, it is all about the Federation and how the Federation interacts with everything else.
The problem with Star Trek from a gaming perspective, or let's just say wargaming perspective, is I think you could make a very serious argument that the war side of Star Trek is not the point. It's almost where in most other franchises that's where the excitement comes from. For Star Trek, it's almost the boring part, because it's the part that nobody... that's not what we're here for with Star Trek. We're supposed to be looking at, we're exploring the human mind through fantasy in space and so forth, and it's not
I'll
about war.
argue with you on the last 4 seasons of Deep Space Nine were solely focused on war.
Well, yes, but I also haven't seen Deep Space Nine. I just mean as a franchise generally. It's never really been
you're not
concentrated on war.
Yeah, but I mean, if you look at Star Wars, it's just like, and SG-1 has the same problem that Star Trek does. Every episode has the main primary faction. If you look at Star Wars, Mandalorian, there's no Jedi. Well, there's hardly any Jedi in that. The movies, it's the good versus bad. And then you've got these TV shows where it's these other little, like they've expanded on. And if you look at, it's only from this one point of view in this one interaction. So yeah. I think that's why you don't see the success.
Star Trek is a political show, and I'm sorry, but it is. That was always supposed to be that. Where Star Wars is essentially a Western, which lends itself to gaming very easily. But, tangents aside, we have long stories coming up later. War Cradle. So, we got 4 new boxes coming. Socks has given us an opinion on some of this. I think what we'll do is we'll kind of go through and browse through them, and then I might get you to read what Socks has to say at the end. So I'm going to start with the Honourable Eclipse, which is another flying one. So we've got blimps and everything in this again, which is glorious. So the Honourable Eclipse Company has spread through the militia forces of the Union of Federation States. We have blimps again.
Federation Space.
Yeah, I know, right? That's because we were just talking about Star Trek.
That is what you call a Freudian slip.
Yep, 100%. I really, really like these, though. I
like the aesthetic of these as well, too. It's a very different dirigible look.
Yeah. I will say I do prefer the look of the German ones that we've looked at previously. I know they're not called German in the game. It's just that's how I'm remembering them. But I really, really like these. These feel more... They're more elongated. They're more aerodynamic, sort of. I mean, as aerodynamic as a giant bullet can be. But... Because that's essentially what this looks like, is
kind
giant
of the
bullets.
Point of a bullet is to be aerodynamic.
I know. That was kind of my point.
I will say I like the little, lack of better words, little mini shield helicarriers with the 4 vertical prop engines.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I quite like the launch too, even though it doesn't really make a lot of sense, but I don't care. It just looks cool. The recon
I
airship.
don't know if you could the scroll through it to the one that has the open front with the flight deck sticking out of it.
That's what I'm talking about.
Okay, yeah. Oh, it's right down there in the bottom corner.
Yeah,
The other thing too, I think is an interesting choice is if you look at every, lighter than air airship, dirigible.
yeah.
Where's the cockpit area? It's always mounted to the other side. These guys are sitting on top.
Yes. Now, I assume that there's probably a good reason, physics, why they're on the bottom usually, but this is essentially a fiction. It doesn't really matter. It's whatever works in the universe you've created. Maybe their reasoning is just purely and simply that, well, now you can tell the difference. I mean, there's very big differences.
I would assume they're on the bottom because gravity, so if that gets out of balance, it's going to flip it upside down, and then everything's going to be the wrong way up, and...
Yeah. This lives in a universe where there's kind of other technologies that's been built because of things and stuff, so they can kind of do whatever they want to some extent. Moving on, we also have the Crimson League battle set, which is very different. Now, I'm just looking at the front here. So this is from the Sultan, so it's another Sultanese type faction. Very much UFO-looking things, honestly. Or at least for the main giant battleship thing. It's very much, like, that is just a spaceship. And I really like it. But then we move off into other things where things start looking like submarines that fly. Sort of.
I was going to say it has a very Captain Nemo Nautilus feel from League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, the movie.
Yeah,
with
I agree.
The flourishing, I guess.
And I like the fact that we have like the Persian style temples on it.
Mm-hmm.
Although Persian is probably the wrong word. It's just like those dome. It comes from that area of the world. It also Taj Mahal sort of, although it's not Taj Mahal for the rest of it. But
well, you can even argue Russia has a similar aesthetic too with the Kremlin.
Yeah. And they get it from the Persians largely, as far as I remember. I could be wrong on that, but I like the fact that they kind of feel like they're flying temples, sort of.
Mm-hmm.
It feels like you're looking at somebody that has a lot of money and has thrown it at their spaceships. Oh, I really like the small ones, where it's got an engine and a sail. That's really cool.
Well, I like how it's kind of corkscrewed.
Yeah. So you can imagine that it's actually going to be flying and spinning at the same time. I really like that.
Yeah.
I think that might be my favourite. We now have the Indian Raj frontline squadrons. So this is more of an expansion on something we've seen previously. This one comes with a couple of tactical cruisers, which look very nice.
Yep.
A couple of monitors. And it looks like, we're also getting some platforms as well. So
I'm pretty underwhelmed by those platforms.
They just look like regular platforms, yeah. Some of the other ones that we've seen have been...
Mm-hmm.
They've had more individual flourishings on them. The escort class is also kind of really... It looks like it's just one piece. I don't really like that. You're reacting to something, but I don't know what it is.
It's the fourth one.
The fourth one? As in the fourth picture?
The fourth battle set.
Oh, right, okay.
I don't have to go in order because I'm not being recorded.
Oh, yeah, no, I'm agreeing with you on this. So, what were you saying about the previous one that we were talking about? Because I'm going to say that for this one too. That submarine is straight Nautilus.
No, that is what is that? I'm gonna Google it.
No? It might be 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea.
That's more what I'm thinking.
Maybe that's what I'm thinking as well. I really, really like this.
Yeah, it's
to the point where that Subnautical Explorer, and I'm just going to say that this now, might be my new favourite thing from their entire line. Like, miniature-wise. From Dystopian Wars in general, that might be my new favourite miniature. For a very long time, it was essentially the Flying Cities, and I still love those Flying Cities. But this is gorgeous. I should probably look at the rest of them as well. Very alien looking. Like, very, very alien
BioShock.
looking.
That's what it's giving me the feel of. It's from BioShock.
Oh, I could see that. Yeah, because it kind of looks like the Big Daddies.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you can paint it up to look like one of them too.
Because I searched fantasy submarines, and like 50% of the images look like that with that glass bubble front. And there's no like one single specific like, oh, it's blah blah blah. It's just everything has that look. And then it's just, you know, like the dude from BioShock, he has that very gym suit, I guess, is what it is. Like that.
Yeah. So I'm really liking this box set. It looks extremely alien. Command Matyas Albar gazed into the huge viewports. Trying to figure out who it's for. So this is for the Enlightened, I think. Covenant of the Enlightened. Okay, yep, yeah, so it's an Enlightened thing. So it looks alien because that's basically where they've taken all their technology from.
Check out the Paraxilia class option for submarine.
Yep. That's a really, really, really cool. I really like what they've done here.
It's really, really hard to say because there's some really good looking big cruisers. You know, Sox has got a couple days painted up, and a couple of those big platforms. But I think this what is that? How did you pronounce that? Shion?
Shion is how I said it, but I could be wrong.
Yeah.
Could be Kion.
I think that is probably hands down
Shioni,
the best looking miniature in this game.
The Shion class Subnautical Explorer.
Subnautical Explorer, yes.
Yep.
I don't think any other miniatures come close to what this miniature looks like.
No, this is outstanding. They've done a really, really good job with this. So, what did Sox have to say about this?
Let's see. Where's that at? It's nice to see. Hold on. It's nice to see the Honorable Eclipse Company. Cribs of League sets sold separately. This allows players to purchase these forces without needing to buy the original two-player set if they only wanted one of the mercenary forces. The Shion submarine looks amazing and clearly shows 2 of the 3 little subs on the model. Did we miss that? Oh, shoot. Look right behind the bubble on the submarine. It's got the smaller submarines attached to the big submarine.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
So,
that's cool.
Glad we read that. I would have missed that completely. This may be a mechanic in the game where the mothership is able to launch a set of smaller subs in the game. The Indian Raj frontline is a good set to increase the number of support ships needed to expand a player's Indian Raj battle fleet set. So, he agrees with us on the look at that submarine, and apparently caught something that we hilariously missed, because if you go and look at the unpainted portion, with what all's in the box, you can clearly see that those are subs attached to the side of that big sub.
Yeah. I kind of feel like he might be right on that. Maybe it's going to spawn them. Or it could just be for an aesthetics. It's really hard to know for sure, but
yeah,
I really, really like this box set. All right. Time to get into our first... Now, hang on. I've done reorders. What is supposed to be next? Is it the big story?
So, yeah, now we've got the big story.
All right. So, time to get into some controversy. So, we have been talking about Mythic Games for a long time. This time last year, I made the prediction that they would be out of business by the end of 2023. That did not end up becoming true, but hey, let's have a discussion as to why. They have sold 2 of their games that they were working on before they've delivered them. And that's the important part of this story first and foremost. So, Hell the Last Saga. And I'm trying to remember, what's the other one that they sold?
Anastyr?
Anastyr, that's right. The last one that they tried to launch.
Second to last one.
There was another one after Anastyr?
Rise of the Necromancer that was done on GameFound. Because they couldn't have Rise of Necromancer on Kickstarter because they already had 6 pending campaigns and they were prohibited from launching a 7th.
Yep.
So yeah, on the 26th of January, am I remembering that correctly? Because I don't have the link pulled up yet. Yeah, 26th of January.
According to you, yep.
Kickstarter, or on Mythic Games posted on Kickstarter that they had sold these intellectual properties to CMON. This is probably from someone who's out a couple $100 on Hell the Last Saga and whatnot. This is probably best case scenario, because as much as you say CMON doesn't meet on crowdfunding, which I'm not going to disagree with.
I also hadn't said that yet.
Yeah, CMON has never failed to deliver anything.
No, they have never failed a Kickstarter.
So, and so
they've never always delivered what people wanted, but they have never failed to deliver a product.
Which I'm glad you said it that way, because the next message from CMON, which Mythic Games posted on the Kickstarter for both Anastyr and Hell, was they're taking over. If you are a backer of this level, you will get a copy of the game that CMON prints. The core copy. If they make anything else, you have to buy that.
Yep.
So here's the next issue. This is specifically for Hell the Last Saga. Mythic said Hell was essentially finished. They needed to do some translation, get a couple more things done, and it was ready to be made.
Which we've been questioning the truth on that subject for a very long time. And I think this pretty much confirms we were right.
CMON says this game is not ready for release.
Yeah, because it was all online.
Well, and there's 2 parts to that. As the game is right now, maybe that's something that Mythic was okay with launching. You know, the Joan of Arc 1.5. You know, that was a crap show of not being finished. And
they haven't exactly been known for finishing their products.
Yeah, so maybe they felt it was, and CMON's like, yeah, nah. Also, for what CMON wants to move this game forward, as far as maybe continuing it and supporting it and creating expansions for it, they need to tweak it for their game style, which they've got plenty to pull from, to make it something that they can continue to make stuff for and continue to sell. But the fact that CMON says, you backers will get a copy of this, you have to pay for the shipping and VAT. So now here's my, all things considered, I am very okay with this result. I'm not an Anastyr backer. Those people are out hundreds of more dollars than what I am.
Yeah.
So now
here's
the
some
next
speculation that's going to follow this, but we're just concentrating on what the actual story is for the moment.
Yeah. So now here's the next part. Yep. So Mythic has brought in $3 million roughly on these 2 campaigns.
Mm-hmm.
They've collected VAT and shipping for these 2 campaigns. And now have sold the intellectual property. So that means they've gotten more money. Guaranteed it's a paltry figure compared to what they raised for it. But they've still gotten more money. Now, they no longer own it. They're still in business, and they're not going to ship this. And I've seen some people say, no, they don't owe us this money back. And I've seen a lot of people say, no, they don't own this product anymore. They can't ship it. They have to refund the VAT and shipping that they collected, because that was to send the product and to pay the value added tax for the countries that collect that. So if anything, I think a lot of people are owed at least $40-$50 for shipping. Whether anything happens from that, that's another story.
Yeah. Now, you and I have discussed this back and forth quite frequently, and I continue to come back to the point of, I don't think you're going to see that, law or otherwise. I think they will fight tooth and nail to hold on to every dollar that they can, because this has been a giant scam from the start, and we all know that at this point.
Yeah. Well, so, and I think using the term scam is a little harsh. I mean, I don't think there was any intent of not delivering the game. I think there was the issue of Leo did a crap job of managing this company with real world stuff that happened, and they're trying to find their ass with both hands, and they've got nothing to grab.
Yep.
So, and I really hope that, because European law is a lot more favorable towards this than American laws, and I really hope a lot of the European backers are able to contact the EU, contact the French government and stuff like that, because this money that was collected was intended to go to these governments to pay for these shipping costs and everything. And so that right there, that's the government should be involved with that and then go after Mythic for that, regardless. Period.
Here's the important thing here. Like, you are legally owed this money, whether they want to give it to you or not. And regardless of whether they intend to give it back to you or not, if you want it, I would be arguing that you need to start speaking up about it. And that means that you need to report it to your local authorities that deal with this sort of thing. You might have trouble in Australia because the ACCC doesn't generally touch Kickstarter stuff. I would certainly still recommend that you try and give them all of the information that you can, because anything will help. But in Australia, you will struggle. America, I'm not 100%. I don't think that your authorities will touch this either. It would have to be a court case, and that will cost you more than it's going to be worth, I would argue. In Europe, you actually have a spine here, and I would be using that spine to ensure that you get every cent that you are owed. So in France, you are entitled to a full refund, but that's specifically France.
Well, because EU law even views Kickstarter projects like this as a pre-order.
Yep.
So, and that's where the laws are more favorable. So, and I'm just going to go through, because this is another big thing that has a lot of people irked too. So, core languages for hell, right? They were going to be English, French, Spanish, German.
Oh, this is part of their... They kept on over-promising everything and then not delivering it, yeah.
Well, they're not delivering anything.
No, I know.
CMON has said they're only doing English and French.
Yep. Which is not unusual. Which is not unusual for them.
Yeah, it's... So, yeah, there's a lot of these European, non-English, non-French speaking countries that were like, cool, I can get this game in my language, and they're not going to get it now.
Yeah.
So
you mentioned earlier that it was at a specific... So it's specifically the Berserk pledge and higher that you're getting the option of a free game. If you're below that, you're just out of money, unfortunately.
So there's no below that. So it's the Berserker pledge for Hell and the campaign, or starts with a C for Anasir. Companion. Those are the bottom level tiers. You have to be one of those backers. You have to be one of those backers to get it. However, anything that is a Kickstarter exclusive add-on or stretch goal will not be in this core set.
So if you have spent hundreds of thousands, well, not hundreds of... If you've spent a very large amount of money in this, you're still only going to get a core game out of it.
Mm-hmm. So
that is the downside.
So
keeping in mind, though, like, CMON are not required to give you anything. And I want to make this very clear, because I will... If I feel like a company should be hearing the truth, I will give it. And I have put CMON, maybe not on blast, but I've given them negative feedback significantly in the past. CMON are not required to do anything at this point. The fact that they're offering you anything at all is already a very big deal. because they are not legally required to do that. I think that goes to show the value that they have seen from this, and this is where I want to get into some of the speculation. Because realistically, I really don't think they've paid very much for this, because they don't really have anything. I mean, it was a very interesting sounding game, but there was no product here.
Yeah.
It was an intellectual property that basically has its reputation in the toilet.
So here's what I'll say on that. So I think by doing this, so it says 1,000 or 17,757 backers, right? Mm-hmm. I think we could safely say a third of those backers probably already have CMON product on their shelf easily, right?
Yeah.
By doing this, those other 2/3 of backers who are jaded, bitter, upset, and angry
will now be CMON fans. So by doing this, call it an act of charity and goodwill. Yeah, that's basically how I look at it.
CMON has just increased their fan base significantly by doing this.
The other thing they have done, and I want to make this very clear, this is an opinion, not a fact. Mm-hmm. CMON have helped Mythic stay open for X amount of months or a year. Mm-hmm. Because I think it's pretty safe to say that Mythic would have been dead if it wasn't for the fact that this happened.
So
Mythic have been, and they will not admit this, but everybody is reporting on this and have been for a very long time. Mythic have been denying this every time it's been brought up. But Mythic have been circling the drain for a good year and a half, if not longer at this point.
Yeah.
They have been bleeding money here, there, and everywhere. And should we kind of get on to this last article in response to...
I got two more things real quick. So I'm going to estimate, and this is just a rough estimate. So they got 2.2 million for Hal. I think CMON probably at most paid him 220,000.
That would be extremely generous, I feel.
I feel that that's a chunk of money that CMON has to say, I will take this intellectual property and produce this game, and be able to give away that core game.
It depends on how, because they said everything was finished, right? So in theory, that means all of the sculpts and everything. So if that was true, and I would still argue that's a very large if, because I genuinely don't believe that it ever was.
There were sculpts that they showed final, approvals on that were ready to go for molds.
So why wasn't it delivered? And this is the problem I have. If it was finished, it should have been done. And this is why I don't believe it.
Yep. Yeah.
But
so
if it is true, that would mean that there was more of a product to purchase. So that may have meant that amount of money may have gone up. But it's still not going to be a large amount of money.
That's why I think 10% of the Kickstarter campaign value. I think that's a very generous estimate of,
It's not enough that it'll keep Mythic open forever, and they are running out of IPs to sell.
So, and here's the next thing too is, and this is my last thing before we move on to this last article, which also take that with a grain of salt too.
Oh yeah.
So Rise of the Necromancers was their last campaign. It raised next to nothing.
Yep.
I think like 50,000 or a couple 100,000 or something like a drop in the bucket in comparison.
Yeah, enough that there probably wasn't going to be enough for that to ever be successful to begin with.
Mm-hmm. And then the last one that's in a big question is Monster Apocalypse. Because that is someone else's IP that they licensed. So they are probably under some form of, they have to do something with that.
Yep.
And at this point, with what it was, they were just turning essentially a war game into a board game.
Yep.
So hopefully that's what they sold these two IPs for, was to get money to get these to the printer, to get them made, and then say, we need this amount per pledge to actually ship this to you.
Yep. Like
they've done with their last projects. So, but that's it for that. So this last article.
Yep. Now, first and foremost, before we go into the details on this, because some people are going to look at this and go, well, is this just somebody lending them an ear and letting them say what they want? This particular news source reported on the news, and I'm going to read this headline: Mythic fails to deliver on 2 Kickstarter projects worth $3.2 million. Sells IP to CMON. So this is a news article. This is a news source that is just going to tell things like they are. It's not just somebody lending them an ear and being nice. I just think that's an important context given the rest of the way that this is going to be discussed.
Right. And we're not going to dive too deep into this. But with everything else that's happened over the last, I'm going to say 2 years with Mythic of, the misinformation, the misleading, the outright lies and lying that they've done. So first and foremost, threatening someone's life and harm and whatnot, that's just a dick move. Don't do it. Period.
100%, and it happens online way too frequently now. It's absolutely disgusting.
So first and foremost, flat out, just not cool. Doxing, I'm sorry, Leo, you own a company. You have screwed up and literally lost people hundreds of dollars per person. Your name is on the paperwork. Don't cry about doxing. Your name is on legal paperwork associated with the company. That's public information, public record. Stop crying. Also, you've lied about everything else. How do we know this isn't just some sob story to make people feel bad about being mad at him? I don't give two craps. He's lost millions of dollars in projects. He says he's still paying rent and hasn't been paid for the last year and a half. What kind of crappy manager are you? If the company was going under and losing this kind of money, you said, "Oh, well, I bought myself a nice house," I'd feel less bad about that because at least you were some sort of capitalist jerk and spent money on yourself instead of losing everything and not paying yourself and living like a pauper. Jeez.
To be fair, the rent that he's paying may be for the company, not for himself personally.
In the article it says his apartment.
Oh, okay, never mind then.
He doesn't own a house. He's still paying rent for where he lives.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. If I was going to mismanage a company, some of that mismanagement would have been $500,000 into a bank account to buy myself a nice house.
Yeah. So, in part of this article, he talks on the fact that he claims that he's been receiving death threats. I'm going to give the same comment here that I gave to you in our chat, which was basically, honestly, I wouldn't entirely be surprised given the subject that we're discussing. But at the same time, I wouldn't entirely be surprised if this is just because it's an easy claim to make when you know that people are angry at you.
Give me the receipts. In this article, he even goes on to say hell was finished. But in the post that Mythic published on Kickstarter from CMON, where CMON laid out what they're doing, CMON said the game's not finished. Yeah. So again, he's still saying it was finished. Someone's lying, and the fact that CMON has failed to deliver, and they say, this isn't finished, we need to retool this, and then we'll get you the game, I'm believing them. I'm going to believe everything they say on Hell from this point forward, and anything that contradicts what Mythic has said or what Leo has said about that game. Mythic and Leo have been lying, period. Because reputation. Leo and Mythic have absolutely zero reputation left, and so whatever they said, it's complete bull.
Yeah.
And unless it's documented, unless Leo prints out an email and it has header information showing that it was sent through a mailer domain with IP addresses and stuff like that, with some saying, "I'm going to kill you," I don't believe a word of it. Period.
Again, it wouldn't surprise me if people have been saying it, but given everything else, I find it difficult to believe. Well, not that I find it. It's not that I don't find it difficult to believe. I just said that I found it very easy to believe, but I find it very difficult to believe things that he says, especially when we've already seen other people make similar claims when we knew for a fact that it never happened. And that's not a comment directed at Mythic. It's directed at someone else. Which is a story that we have not discussed publicly, but we will at some stage.
I'll sum it up in one final statement.
Apocalypse and Rise of the Necromancer. Basically, he says outright that they're going to be asking for more money for those games. So, again, this is not good.
So, let me backtrack one thing. Not saying I won't believe anything Leo says. No, I believe that. I believe that they're going to beg for more money because, well, it's what they've done in the past. So,
yeah.
And
people are in a really hard spot because should they be expected to give more money? No. Damn right they should not. The fact that they are being asked for more money is disgusting. But what do people do? It's either that or they get absolutely nothing and all of their money is thrown away. None of this is okay. It's all manipulation. It's all... It's just complete, disgusting disregard of the fact that these... whether it's mismanagement deliberately or otherwise, and I fail to believe that not all of this is deliberate. Some of this is genuine mismanagement. That is very clear. But you can't tell me that you get 7 games into this and that it's not manipulation and deliberate propaganda at that point. At some point, some of that is failure. At some point, that changed from failure and mismanagement to deliberately trying to keep ahead of this before it catches up with us.
Yeah, for sure. I'm going to say one more thing, and I think we'll finish this out. And the next time we'll talk about Mythic is when they actually shut their doors.
Probably. Or when we eat crow and say, nope, we've actually got evidence that this has been delivered. Because I will happily do that.
Yeah. If they deliver these last 2 campaigns, I mean, fine, whatever. But after that, I don't think they have enough reputation left to stay in business in the industry.
No, there's no way.
Because in order for them to do another game, they would have to crowdfund, and no one at this point is going to touch them. Because at this point, everyone's just like, oh no, they'll be fine. And now it's just like, they've asked for money on 2 campaigns. Now they've sold 2 campaigns without delivering them. Like, if you still think Mythic is a great company, here, I need to bring this up too. Sorry. You need to like wake up and smell the roses. Because Mythic has turned off the ability to leave a review of their company on their Facebook page. Reviews have been turned off.
Oh, actually, that's a good point, because you also can't contact them in any way either.
The only way you can contact them now is through email. You cannot message them on Facebook. They will tell you to email them when you message them on Kickstarter. Then the last, and so the pages that they manage for Hell and Anastyr, they have turned off commenting on those. So members of those pages cannot post onto those pages anymore.
Yep.
So,
which is we're going out of business 101.
Well, you can still comment on Siege 6. You can still comment on Darkest Dungeon.
When people are preparing to go out of business and don't want to have to give refunds, this is what people do.
Yeah.
Especially scammers.
Yeah. So, the last thing I'm going to end on is there's a fable. You've heard of it. It's called The Boy Who Cried Wolf.
Yeah.
That's what Leo's doing. And they've cried too many times, and no one has sympathy or support left for them, I think.
It's hard to at this point, because even with the evidence that we've seen of Siege 6 getting its stuff done...
in theory, it's on boats. So
in theory, it's on boats, but I don't know how many people believe that they're ever going to receive it at this point. I mean, in theory, there's no way that they can't, but I'm still sitting here going, I don't know if they're going to get it, because it's hard not to think that at this point. All of the links to everything we've discussed will be in the show notes, unless they turn it off into backers only. They can't do this with the article that was posted by Board Game Wire, and I want to mention Board Game Wire because they are the source for that.
I will do this. I will do this since I'm a backer of Hell. If they do turn off those, I will copy and paste and make sure that those updates stay public.
Yep. Which hopefully they will. In theory, if they've handed off that to CMON, in theory, hopefully they don't have access to change it anymore. However, I don't think that's possible. So we'll see.
Well, CMON said they're not taking over the campaign. They just said, we're taking what we've got, we're making it, and that's it. If you don't like it, you don't have to get the game.
Yep.
So.
All right, let's move on to another Kickstarter.
Well, no, we got one other thing. We were told that every time Drop Squad Commander is called Drop Squad Commander, they're going to delay Drop Squad Commander by 6 months.
Yes, so I have the exact statement that was given to us. I forgot that I was supposed to do this. All right. So I have a good authority that every time we say Drop Squad Commander, that it's delayed by a further 6 months. So we should definitely never call it Drop Squad Commander, and forever always remind everyone that the name for the game was always Drop Squad Commander. And apologies to everybody for continuing at all times to continue to remind you that it's called Drop Squad Commander, because it is Drop Squad Commander and not the other name that they tell you about. Accidentally, I've just delayed it by another 2 years. I'm sorry.
Add on 1.5 years for me, because I said it at least 3.
This comes from a conversation that apparently the Drop Universe Facebook group admin that have been making this remark every time somebody says it. So that's where that comes from.
Who else is saying Drop Squad Commander besides us?
Oh, it gets mentioned in the groups here and there.
Okay. Because Louis, I'm sorry. I know you want to call it Strike Team Commander, and I respect you as the owner of the company.
We're doing it in jest more than anything else. Anyway.
But I'm going to call it Drop Squad from here to the end of time. It's Drop Squad Commander. I'm sorry.
I threatened them with this. I was like, no, we're going to continue doing this forever. All right.
Moving on.
So, this piece of news was actually brought to us by one of our Patreons. Thank you, Shay. Now, Shay brought this to us as in Night Games are bringing Harry Potter, the miniature adventure game, back to Kickstarter. This is something that was Kickstarted initially. And he was kind of commenting on some comments that was coming through that people have already pre-ordered this, and then they're just being forced that their pre-order is going into the game on Kickstarter rather than what they had pre-ordered. Now, as far as I can tell, I don't believe that in and of itself is entirely true. I think that's because I can't find evidence for that at all. I think that that's been worded wrong a little bit. So what this actual Kickstarter is actually for, because again, this is a game that already exists. Why are they kickstarting it? They're kickstarting it to open up more expansions for the game, to expand it. I suspect that part of this, and this is me suspecting things, I suspect that part of this is because they don't want to lose the license, because they need to use it. It is probably important to remember that the Harry Potter Miniatures Adventure game, when it came out, got some fairly average reviews.
If it's the one I'm thinking of, I think it got ripped pretty good about the resin miniatures.
It's been pretty negative, yeah.
Being very difficult to put together, and they not the highest of quality. So,
unfortunately, Night Games don't have a great reputation when it comes to the quality of their miniatures. It's been a problem that's existed as long as the company has, and I can speak as someone that used to purchase their Batman stuff regularly. The problem existed back then as well. And it's never really gotten any better from what I've understood from the people that still purchase their products. We reported about 12 months ago about how one of their major social media fans had opened and received empty boxes from them on brand new products. So that this sort of stuff actually still happens. Anyway.
Also, can I just interject something real quick?
Yeah.
So, the first 24 hours, if you pledge, you get a free miniature.
Yep.
For crying out loud, can you do a better character than Gilderoy Lockhart, for frick's sake?
As somebody that's not a Harry Potter person, I don't really have an opinion on that. But given that this is also an expansion, you got to wonder who's left. I don't know who's been done, honestly.
Well, so you got the Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them franchise.
True. Yeah, that is true.
So,
all right. So there's a couple of official posts on the Facebook page which I wanted to quickly look at. One of them is a quick reel of some of the miniatures that they're looking at, which, like, the miniatures look fine. But there's been 2 posts that they made about this, both of which will link you directly to the Kickstarter. The first one is basically talking about what they're wanting to do, which is that they're wanting to do expansions for the game to enhance the gameplay, offer a more versatile gaming experience. It's fairly generic marketing talk, honestly.
mm-hmm.
There is quite a few errors, typos that was in this originally, most of which I think have been fixed. But you can actually see from the comments that people have commented on this. But I want to quickly go through a couple of things. Forcing people to go from a pre-order where they have a right to claim refunds to a system where they don't feels shady. And promising Kickstarter goals only needing to pay for extra shipping isn't really a selling point. That's just how stretch goals work. And there's a few comments about things being spelt wrong. People asking about French language for Catch the Snitch, which is not even the game they're talking about. Do you plan on supporting the game after the Kickstarter? You haven't even been on your own Discord, and have been ignoring rules questions for those that already bought the game. And they kind of, like, they give a fairly generic response. Like, most of this is very negative. Now, granted, some of this is going to just be people being negative for the sake of being negative. And I want to kind of take this at face value at that regard.
I just commented on the forcing people to go from a pre-order to where they have the right to claim refunds. I just commented on that post.
Okay.
I think you'll be amused by what I said.
I will have a look at it later. What will the miniatures be made of? The last ones are too frail to use very often. They are assembled.
That was the other
miniatures.
complaint I remember reading, was that they were very brittle.
Yeah. So they're saying that they're assembled plastic miniatures, which probably means that they're going to be CMON style miniatures. That is speculation on my part, though. I don't know that for a fact, but it's going to be board game quality miniatures by the sound of it. I think the big one here, there's a comment on the second post, which is fix your first edition of Harry Potter before releasing another. Because, again, this has not been a game that was very well received. Now, my comment on this is probably going to surprise some people. Because I'm not someone that's a huge fan of Night Models / Night Games. It's the same company. They just have different things for different...
2 divisions.
Yeah. And that is every other company in the world does. If they are a Kickstarter company, they will do the expansions on Kickstarter. Night Models, and you're welcome to click on if you go back to the Kickstarter. Night Games have only ever created 2 Kickstarter campaigns. One of which was for the Catch the Snitch game, which was cancelled. I suspect because it wasn't going very well. And the other one is for Harry Potter Catch the Snitch, which was successful. I stand corrected. Sorry, this was not originally a Kickstarter game. But so they're not a company that's really gone on Kickstarter much. They're not on here frequently. So I don't have a huge problem with the fact that they're going there now. I do, however, have a problem with the fact that they're going there to make expansions for a game that was not funded on Kickstarter. Because it's an existing product, and existing products are not supposed to be Kickstarted. Might have been smarter to launch this on GameFound, perhaps, but still, it's just the same thing, but under a different name. But Kickstarter specifically have a rule against this sort of thing.
Well, so here's the thing, and a little bit of circumvention. So I'm going to throw out the aforementioned CMON.
Yeah. I don't have huge problems with this.
They kickstarted and I forget it's the new it's seasons 3 and 4 of Cthulhu Death May Die.
Yep.
And they made available through that Kickstarter campaign everything that was available through the original Cthulhu Death May Die. So what was already like, at retail, you can get through the campaign for Fear of the Unknown. That's what it's called. I just had to look it up. So I think you can get everything. Oh, I know the exclusive stuff that, I paid out of the nose for one. I could have gotten for way cheaper had I waited 2 months.
Yeah,
wah,
and
wah.
that's just something that happens, yeah. So there's certainly going to be some split opinions on this. When I started looking into this, I was expecting to have a much more negative opinion than I do, which might disappoint Shay, I don't know. But I couldn't really find evidence of them saying that this was a pre-order and then taking that money and saying that, no, this is now a Kickstarter. I can't find any evidence of that at all. I suspect that that's been something that's been mistranslated. If it was something that's on the website, it's not there now. By all means, if this was something that was being pre-ordered and then they were throwing it on a Kickstarter, that would definitely be inappropriate. My thought is that, well, was nobody kickstarting it? Is that why? So is nobody pre-ordering it? Is that why? But there's nobody on this talking about that either. And that is a complaint that would be here if somebody was upset about that.
Here's one thing I'm going to say. Well, and that's the one advantage to, they're going to find out quick if they go on the Kickstarter platform with this. Once they put it up, they can't take it down. That's the one thing I will give Kickstarter credit for. If they put it up, it's there. It's stuck.
Yeah. I would probably say that this is their opportunity to fix what has been a very poorly received game. And if they don't actually show evidence of trying to do that, I haven't played this. I'm only going on the opinions that we've seen here. I looked up reviews myself. The opinions on it have been very average at best. So if they don't try to answer those questions, I don't think this will go very well.
Yeah. The only thing I'm going to say, too, is if you run a Kickstarter campaign and you get a bunch of money for it, the one thing you need to do, make your models less crap, period.
Yeah.
When you have, I'm going to say, at least half a dozen of companies out there that can put out games with mass-produced plastic miniatures that are of a very high quality, make a phone call. Figure out, or at least figure out where they're being manufactured at and go to that manufacturer.
Or hire them to do them for you.
Or yeah, there you go. I'm fairly certain if you call up someone at CMON and like,
CMON do make miniatures for other people.
Yeah.
Like that is something that they do.
Like, we need these miniatures made. Can you help us? Yeah, most of
CMON's sculpting is done by a third party that technically they own or something. It's complicated. It's a third party, but technically they own them as. And Night Models may not like this being said out loud, but I am going to say it again. They don't have a very good reputation for the quality of the miniatures they produce. The sculpting is phenomenal. They're very good at that. But producing the miniatures themselves, they're very poor at.
Yeah, can we go talk about the next thing for Night Models for sculpting?
Yeah, because I really like this. Batman Beyond is happening for the Batman game. So we get Terry McGinnis as Batman. We have I forgot what his brother's name is. We have Matthew McGinnis as Robin, and I didn't even know that happened. This is obviously something after the cartoon. But most importantly,
Old Man
the only
Wayne.
thing anybody cares about is Old Man Bruce Wayne with Ace. This is brilliant. And the sculpting is phenomenal too.
Now, so I will catch a lot of flack for this. I think Batman Beyond is the best Batman.
I can't say I agree with you, but I don't think that people will have a bigger problem with that as you think they will.
Well, I mean, when you go to the whole, like, and when I'm talking like the animated series I'm talking the Michael Keaton's. I think the Batman Beyond, Terry McGinnis, I think that's the best Batman because, let's be honest, some of the technology and toys and gadgets and stuff that Batman had, they're a little out of the realm of reality.
Yeah,
you get into the future where
in the future,
yeah, Batman Beyond, all the stuff is totally legitimate. Like, it's the future. Who's going to say if it's real or not? You know, look at Booster Gold. Look at, there's so much going on. And the fact that Old Man Wayne was still trying to get up with his geriatric, joints and still keep doing this, like, that is like, I'm sorry, like,
yeah. There's one
Snyder,
scene in particular,
you
which
have
is from
old Michael Keaton. Do a Batman Beyond movie now with Michael Keaton as Old Man Wayne. Do it now before he's gone.
I haven't seen The Flash. I haven't heard good things, but I haven't seen it. In the animated series, there is a scene that shows you why Bruce stopped, and it's because literally his body gave out on him to the point where he felt the need to pick up a gun that somebody had dropped, and it just broke him, essentially. It was really, really... maybe one of the most emotional scenes ever done in the Justice League universe. It was really, really well done. And it just set the scene for everything to come really well. I don't remember what... it's either in the first or the second episode, but it's done as a flashback, basically.
Yeah. And the other thing is, the other thing Batman Beyond did, they actually had the Joker, like, you see him kill someone on screen.
Yep.
And as soon as that was released and everyone saw it and flipped out, it was just like, oh my... They have done everything in their power to make sure no one sees it again ever.
Well, I think here's the important thing, though. The reason that worked so well is because it's the only time it had been shown. That's why it works.
Yeah.
Batman Beyond Return of the Joker is an animated film that you must see. I don't care if you see the censored one or not. I actually think the censored one is just as good, as, if not better in some ways. That's a very controversial opinion. Most people will argue with me on that. But it is a film you need to see regardless. It holds up very well.
But going back to these miniatures are great. Don't get me wrong. Old Man Wayne and Ace, it is the most perfect superhero miniature there is.
Yeah.
Because it's a cranky old dude with a cane and a very well-trained dog.
Yeah, and Bruce Wayne is exactly what you think he's going to be as an old man, too. He's just really grumpy.
The actual Batman and Robin sculpts, those are great too. The Batman one is so dynamic.
Yeah.
There's so much action in that pose.
I kind of wish Robin's arms were down a little bit, because it kind of looks like he's flying backwards. Because he looks like he should be flying like Superman, right? But he's dropping. Yeah. And I mean, that's how your arms would go. I just kind of wish they were more here or something.
I'm going to say this too, because it's Batman Beyond. It's the future. There's lots of high-tech stuff.
Yeah.
Give Robin a full, head mask, not just a little, like, domino mask that covers up the eye that actually does nothing to hide your identity.
Well, they're going to be stuck with what was done in the comics, though.
I'm saying this in general. The comics can go eat that too.
Well, yeah, but they're dealing with a licensed product. They have to do what I
understand. Okay, Batman Beyond writers, why the hell did you not give him a full helmet mask? Why has he got a domino mask? Fix that.
There is one other thing I want to touch on with this. The miniatures are thermoplastic. That means that it's CO cast, which will mean that this is instantly a no from some people. I have actually not had negative experiences with CO cast. I also don't know which version of the thermoplastic they're using. I don't know if it's the difficult to use one or the hard one. I have no way of knowing because it doesn't actually tell us here. If there are people that do know if they use the new hard one or not, though in my experience, I didn't notice any difference between them. But I suspect that might have been because the one that I got wasn't the hard that it was supposed to be. But if you do know what their product is generally like, please let people know in the comments of this, whether it be on one of the social media platforms or whether it be on the YouTube comments itself, because We have no way of finding that out, and if you already do know, it would be very helpful to people that are maybe on the fence about whether they want this or not. Again, I've not had massively negative experiences with COcast. It certainly wouldn't be my first choice when it comes to purchasing things, but because I know that that's a very hard no from certain people, I wanted to bring it up. Because there are some people that have very strong opinions on it.
Oh, shoot. I'm pushing the wrong button.
What are you doing?
I was trying to adjust the brightness.
Oh.
And I
think you're about
pushing
to tell
the wrong.
Me that we lost a whole.
No, I was pushing the wrong button, so I was turning on the colored lights on my.
All right.
Guild Ball.
Yeah. So very, very early on in our Kickstarter, in our podcast thing, this became a very big story that we had covered. I think we were one of the first to cover it. I could be wrong on that though.
We talked about this on Hot LZ.
Oh, was it Hot LZ days?
Yeah, because Levi, where he was at, there was a big Guild Ball community, and he was in that.
I remembered that we covered it, but I didn't remember that it was Hot LZ.
And they did their last season, and Steamform Gate and said, "This is it. This is done. This is the end." Which, I could understand that. Like, you feel the product has run its course, and you don't want to dump more into it and start losing money.
Yeah.
The downside is when you have a great product, people want it.
Yeah.
So
as this announcement originally came from their Kickstarter, from their YouTube. The reason I have linked to On Tabletop, and credit to On Tabletop for the article, is they wrote an actual article discussing this, where Steamforged Game just had the video, which is kind of hard to discuss on a video podcast because you can't just have it running in the background with audio. But basically what ends up happening is we've got the two original people that was involved in the game, Rich and Matt. Matt actually reveals that he's the one that wrote that this game is over thing, and actually apologizes for it. Because, and we kind of touched on this initially back in the day, there's bits of that where, although he says it wasn't deliberately worded that way, kind of almost felt like because the game had become something that they never really intended for it to be, because that's what the community had wanted. But it was kind of written in a way that almost sounded like this game being over is your fault, which isn't how we took it. But we did acknowledge that there was parts of it that were written a little bit oddly. And like he's apologized for, because that wasn't the message that he was trying to get across. So I think it's nice to know that our impressions of what was written was probably the right ones. Because I remember us discussing about whether that's what they mean or not. And basically it was just like it became an extremely competitive game. And that wasn't, it was just meant to be kind of fun, and it kind of snowballed into something that it wasn't supposed to be, and it wasn't fun for them anymore. It was meant to be like an explanation as to why they're giving it up, as opposed to we're going to stop this and it's your fault, which is how a lot of the internet kind of took it.
And here's the unfortunate downside of this gaming industry. If you make something that's good, that's fun, and people want to play it, people are going to make it competitive. That's There's no getting around.
I will have this problem with Entropy City at some point. I will, well, if it becomes a real product.
Yeah.
Anyway, the actual announcement is that they're bringing it back, sort of.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, no, not sort of. They have brought it back. So, first and foremost, the original 2-player starter set has returned as a digital product that comes with free STL files. You can download the original rulebook for free again. Like the original kickoff set, everything available is there. The tokens, the miniatures you will have to print for yourself, and then so on and so forth. But on top of that, they have also brought back everything as a physical product.
Yep.
And I mean everything. In the video, they discuss STLs as well. Now, that has not happened at this stage, but they do discuss doing STLs. And that leads me to believe that at some point we're probably going to get some STL versions of this for those that don't want to buy the physical product.
Well, so there are already STLs available.
Yes, but that's of the actual
Yeah,
starter set. I'm discussing everything else.
Yeah.
So there is STL files available for the free starter set. Like they are right here. I'm showing them on screen right now. And these models were gorgeous back in the day, just for the record. But you can now also buy everything else. The big thing that they discuss in their video was that the thing that they were struggling with at the time was how the game was being distributed, and it really put a lot of pressure on them, and that was what they were finding the most stressful. Because they've now branched out and done other things over there, because they're 10 years old now. I don't even know how that happened. I mean, I guess because time passes and that's how time works.
Yes, Bruce.
But they've been able to fix a lot of those problems that they were having by becoming a better company and so on and so forth. So these things aren't necessarily a problem anymore. And so they can bring it back, and I don't believe we're getting any new product as far as this. I mean, maybe that will change if it goes really well. I'm sure there's people out there going, I really hope so. But just keep in mind, they haven't said anything about that. I just said maybe if it goes really well, they will do it. So don't hold them to the fact that I'm like, hey, maybe.
Well, one of the comments that where was it? It's on the on tabletop article.
Yeah.
One of the first comments: a way to get my hands on some fine figures and not be raked over the coals on price. Like,
yeah,
I mean, to me, this fits both parts of the. It's a war game because you have your army that you bring to the table, right?
Yep.
And you pay and do all that stuff and everything. But it's also just a board game because it's finite on what you have.
Yeah. This is another one of those games that was very much kind of in the middle. It was definitely intended as like a sports war game. It was kind of like the next evolution of Blood Bowl. Before Blood Bowl was back, and did legitimately push things in a different direction. I would probably give them credit to part of why Blood Bowl was given back. I think there's a very good reason why that didn't happen before this was dead. And it wasn't that long after this that they brought Blood Bowl back. Like, it being killed off. I'm not saying that it happened like the day after or anything, but it was very much not long after that. I could be misremembering this by chance, but I think that's how it happened. Is that it was like 12 months after this or something, roughly. Which kind of said, well, maybe we can. And then they did. So, there's definitely going to be a lot of very excited people out here. There's actually 2 videos. There is a general Q&A as well, which is just answering questions. They do make a point, and I didn't even know that this is a thing. I should have known that this was a thing because it happens all the time. The Guild Ball community had kind of come together with a community project to continue the life of the game after Steamforge stepped away. They actually acknowledged this on camera, and they actually answered a couple of things that were changed that they wouldn't have done, but kind of say, look, we're not actually here to step on that. And they actually like thank them for keeping the game alive and so forth, which is something that Games Workshop certainly never did with Blood Bowl. Like they did acknowledge that people were still playing it, but they never gave any credit to that community for keeping the game alive, that I remember. Because that's just not how Games Workshop does business. And that's fine. It's just different companies deal with things differently. Yep. But I think the fact that they did touch on that and actually acknowledge, I like that they acknowledged that there were things that were done that they wouldn't have chosen to do, but without doing it in a way that was like, well, this was wrong and we felt like we had to step in and fix the mistakes that they did, which is not what they did at all. They were like, well, it's not what we would have done. We're going to show you what we would have done, but we want to make it clear that we're just doing this for us and not because we want to shut them down. Quite the opposite. I'm paraphrasing quite heavily. So I think this is really exciting. I did actually sign up to get the free STLs. I may even show them off on camera at some point once I print them. I need to get some resin. If people want to see that, let me know, I guess. It's probably not
Yeah,
a video that I will do.
I'm gonna leave that page open. I'm gonna put my info in as well.
The other thing I have is about 12 months ago, I purchased one of the old Guild Ball boxes, and it's sitting up there. And I was considering doing a retro review of it. I mean, it's not really old enough to be retro, but I don't know. Let me know if you want to see that. Shall we move on?
Let's move on.
Games Workshop. So,
who are they?
Small company that owns a monopoly of 80% of the market, unfortunately. But all right, we usually have some fairly negative things to say about the event exclusive miniatures. But I will give credit where it's due. At least they do make them available to everyone else after that. So the previously available ones that you could only get at events, once they're replaced, they do make them available on the regular market. So I do like the fact that they do it. It's kind of a nice balance between it. This time we have the Hunter Strikes, which is a Groot Carnivore in like mid-striking pose, which is basically just designed to go straight with the hunting pack that we looked at last episode that I got really excited for. Now, obviously, I want this mini, but I have no way of getting it. Like, quite literally, I have no way of ever getting this until it goes on retail. So, I mean, in theory, I know people that are going to Adepticon, which is when this will be released. But then I'd have to sort out the postage, which would just be offensively expensive.
Ludicrous.
Yep. The other one that we get is this Free Guild Commander Corps, who that kind of like he looks like he's like in a plague monk, a plague doctor mask type thing, but it's a knight's helmet. It's very clearly supposed to be. It's meant to be after the crow. Like that's very clearly what.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's very yes, it very much is a plague doctor mask, but I think it's supposed to be more the crow, raven aesthetic, which. That's a good-looking armor.
I really like this, honestly.
It's highly unfeasible, but it looks really good.
Yep. Look, in a fantasy world, it doesn't really matter if things look like they work or not. Sometimes it just matters if things look cool.
Yep. No, for sure.
I like both of these, honestly. And I like both of these equally. I mean, I need to have the Kroot. I won't have it for 12 months. But I like them both. I could see myself doing something with the free. There's a lot of the free guild stuff that I really didn't like, but I do like this. This actually goes together with the Arch Knights. Apparently, all of them are animal themed. I don't remember that, but maybe that's just because we were looking at everything at the same time.
Yeah.
We also have the Sunday preview, which we don't always look at, but I kind of wanted to look at it this time because this is all Flesh Eater Courts. And there's actually, like, this is what went on pre-sale yesterday for me, today for you. Because I really like the look of a lot of this stuff. Ashura in particular is gorgeous.
Yeah.
I think we saw that in
that
previews. Like, this is
it's
phenomenal.
It is a very good centerpiece mini.
I mean, it's disgusting and gross, but it's gorgeous because of that. We also have Fangs of the Blood Queen, which is like a little box set. This appears to be like a little starter set type thing, which is this queen model down here in the bottom, which, if anything, is too clean. I would want more blood and stuff on that. I love the snake that she's with, just the giant snake in front of her. And then the undead dogs and the giant bats.
Oh my
in the background.
god. Grand Justice Gormane.
Yes. Who is literally wearing somebody's entrails as a wig. This is just so Age of Sigmar, it's not funny.
For those who live in America and are not familiar with the rest of the Commonwealth, typically judges and lawyers wear white powder wigs when in courts.
So he's wearing somebody's intestines as a white powder wig.
Yes.
We also have Abhorrent Cardinal, which is just somebody that's he just really loves his job. Like, he's he's there for this. Like, this is why he got up this morning. Is so that he could wear this costume.
Okay, this is what I'm hearing. Dear we beloved, we are gathered here.
The Royal Decapitator is... I really love the axe. It's probably the least of them for me. It doesn't really jump out. Like, compared to everything else, that just kind of looks like it's sitting there. Because the Vargulf Courtier is, again, one that really jumps out as something that's gorgeous. The Mara Herald is, again, one that's kind of like, eh.
That Decapitator only looks good because whoever painted that did a phenomenal job on that axe.
Yeah. The axe is what sells it, which is very clearly the centerpiece of the model as well.
The Vargulf Courtier, yeah, that thing looks stunning.
Yep.
The Herald. Oh,
yep.
That Herald is...
It's
that's
kind of
something.
like... that kind of feels like... So I don't love this, but I will say that this is better than the zombies that it was based on originally.
Okay, so but look at it from this point of view, right? Heralds, they were, they were the bragging post for the knight. They had the heraldry. They had all the stuff. This is so and so. He killed this thing, which is what I'm holding, and it's got this thing that he killed that's hanging off of it. Like, it's a... That's
true. See, I look at this and I see the horrible-looking zombie skeleton things from the zombies box that kind of look like they're struggling to carry. And I look at this as what they should have looked like to begin with.
That's fair.
No, I could be looking at that completely wrong, but that's just what I see.
So
the Crypt Guard are obviously just your troops, and again, I kind of feel like that's what the zombies should have been.
Look at the banner. The banner is amazing.
Yeah.
It's just a chunk of flayed skin, and the one part coming off of it is the entire hand.
Yeah. The Moorheld Knights, the Moorbeg Knights. Gorgeous. I love the undead bat in the front. I don't know if that's actually an undead bat or if it's just wearing something's skull. I think that might be wearing something's skull.
I would say undead because if you look at the wings, the flesh is missing.
True. Yeah, that's true.
So.
Yeah, no, you're right.
Oh, and they saved the best for last here.
What, the dice?
No, the Ironhead Squat Prospector.
I don't mind him. I mean, it's... Yeah, I don't mind it. I don't have strong opinions on it, but... There's also the new store anniversary models down the bottom, too. One of which I really like, and the other one just kind of stands there.
Ooh, yeah.
I actually do like the Gilded Key, but it's kind of just a mini that stands there. It looks like everything else in that range.
Yeah, but I need it.
Yeah, because you have that army. However, the Invocation of Elements, I really... that's an ethereal that is actually a new ethereal. I quite like that. Not that the ethereals is really the interesting part of the Tau army to me, but I like the fact that there is actually a new one.
I need that so bad. That's only available in the stores, isn't it?
It's only available at the stores on an anniversary.
Dang it.
And they're usually about $40 a pop.
I don't care. I want it. I needs it.
In theory, find out someone that has a store near them, maybe Socks, for example, and see if he can get it on their anniversary.
Well, the store closest to us that just opened, so...
As in you have a proper Warhammer store near you?
Casper, Wyoming. It's like 2 hours away.
Oh, there you go. Depending on when they opened, they may actually have
last year. Last year.
Well, find out when their anniversary is. So yeah, that's it.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
I do know a guy nearby. He will pick it up for me.
Or
and then I won't have
to trip out.
And then I don't have to go through the shenanigans I did last time to get anniversary stuff.
Fair enough. So yeah, there we go. I like a lot of this. I mean, not everything, and you can't like everything. But there is quite frequently with the armies coming out of Age of Sigmar lately, we kind of either get like the one tribute thing, and then everything else is just re-released because whatever. The Flesh Eater Court's already had a lot in it, so that's kind of what I was expecting this time. But they've come out with a whole heap of really gorgeous looking minis. And there's a couple that I don't like, but that's just aesthetically like my tastes. And it's not so much that they're bad. Like the Royal Decapitator is just kind of there. It's a gorgeous mini, but the problem is that it's surrounded by so many phenomenal looking things. It makes it look average because you can't help but compare things. It's actually really gorgeous. But it doesn't compare with everything else around it, because how could it? I think they've outdone themselves on this. There's going to be some very happy people out there. Don't buy the dice. Just don't.
Indie. Definition. Independent. Type. Slang word. Jargon.
Which is a company that we have looked at in the... Ooh. Apparently they have a Kickstarter running. I didn't even know. We're not looking at the Kickstarter, though. We have looked at these guys briefly in the past. But I don't think we looked at them as an actual indie. So these guys make, arguably, the nicest looking terrain you will ever find. Arguably. It's all resin cast. It's hand sculpted. If you go to shop, George, I'm just going to start with the Timbered House number 2, because it's literally the first thing. And I think you will start remembering this because, like I said, we have discussed these guys in the past.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I remember seeing this, yeah.
So, all of this is hand sculpted, and then like they actually use like actual stone and stuff to actually build things by hand. It shows in the prices, but like these are phenomenal looking buildings. And this is just... It's just a house. Everything's designed to break down. Everything is hard resin. So you will have to wash all of this before you paint it, obviously. Ladders and everything can be all separated. It can all be brought out to kind of customize it however you want. So if you want to make it ruined, you can just not put the windows in, or maybe you do want the windows in, or whatever you want. They're kind of designed for D&D. Largely, it's heroic scale, but it's like suited for like 28 to 32 mil. If I go back, I want to look at the graveyard because this thing is very expensive. So let's see if we can find out why this is very expensive. I think because it's huge.
Hang on one second.
It's because it's huge.
I'm in the process of sending a message.
Fair enough.
So
this is
I'm talking to my buddy who's near that store.
He could have done this after the recording, folks.
No, I can't.
Yes, you can. This thing is a $490 set.
Holy smokes.
It comes with a giant chapel, a mausoleum, 2 tombstones, 2 tombs, 2 dead trees, a graveyard gates, 3 straight walls, 3 curved walls, 3 pillars, a whole heap of corner pillars, and then some miscellaneous pillars. So it's expensive because it comes with everything. It's basically a gaming table.
I was going to say, yeah, that sounds like everything you need for a Flesh Eater Court's game board.
Yeah. They also say down the bottom that you could expand it with an additional small gate, the King's Mausoleum, church. Like you could still keep on going with this. But it's...
Oh, there we go. All the images finally loaded for me. There is a lot there. Holy smokes.
Yeah, it's huge. Especially when you keep in mind that like the size of these buildings are the same sort of scale that we were just looking at previously. And you have, well, one of them and 3 smaller ones because they don't have they don't have other stories. And the detail that you're getting in these is just absolutely phenomenal. Like, this is a company where you could spend a lot of money very quickly if you're not careful.
This is the company you spend money by going to the webpage and looking. So you know how like you go to some restaurants and it's like they charge you for water because they think they're that fancy.
Yep.
This terrain company, the way their stuff looks, like like if you go to their page, they say you must pay $1 to access this page to view what we have for sale. Like that's how good the stuff looks. I know I probably said that last time, and I'm gonna say it again. And if we look at them a third time, I'm gonna say it again. Their stuff just looks that good.
Yeah. So like the last time we were here, excuse me, we were looking at the guard tower and the stone bridge. I kind of lost myself in that stone bridge for ages. Excuse me. And the wizard tower.
Yeah, I remember the wizard tower. Oh my god, that thing is baller.
I want to go further. I quite like the monument too, actually. Like that's something I could see in the middle of pretty much any table. Like you could have that in a modern day table, and it's just something that's really old. But if you go to page 2, and I know that this is going to be a really boring thing to look at, but I want to look at these river sections. Because this is something that you would normally need to carve into your gaming table.
Yep. Oh, hey, look at that.
So I'm just opening up river section A just because like it's the one that I want to look at. It does show you how it works as well.
Oh, no, I just added to basket.
And like you can actually see how they've done it. Like you can see the bit where it's supposed to be sitting on the actual, what I assume would be foam, because that's how you would do this.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a really, really gorgeous looking river. It works really well. And I love the fact that they're actually showing it as part of the set as well. It's not just A that they're showing you. Like I said, it's a boring thing to show off, but they have a piece that specifically goes with the stone bridge. That's really nice.
River section, the SB.
Yep, because the narrow bit in the middle is where the bridge sits. And it was mentioned before, so I want to look at the King's Mausoleum. There's a whole heap of more tombstones that you can buy, but we won't look at that. Like this stuff is just insane. The only issue you're going to have with buying terrain that looks this good is that you then have to paint it to look this good as well. But also at the same time, because there's so much texture and detail in this, like just look at the stonework on the walls. You can tell that that's been built.
Oh yeah,
that's going to lend itself to washes and stuff very, very well. The hardest part will be getting everything primed properly. And like if that's the hardest thing that you have to deal with, the lion on the lion casket on the inside.
I saw that.
Oh, that's amazing. And then they show it in the middle of the previously mentioned terrain set. It's just really pretty. There's a donkey on page 3, and it's just a donkey.
You gotta say it right, Bruce.
Donkey.
There you go.
There's a whole there's a whole marketplace, weapon stalls.
Yeah, a grain veggies and vine stall.
Yep. Potter stall. Like you could go to town on this website and really, really buy.
And quite literally, because you could build a town with this website.
Yep. There's also an empty stall. That's a nice touch. So, the townsfolk. I want to open up the townsfolk. Oh, the town square you can buy as an STL. That's nice.
Do the roar.
I want to open up the townsfolk. Why the townsfolk? There we go. I mustn't have clicked on it properly. They are just some really gorgeous looking miniatures. because miniatures isn't something they do a lot of. So you could be forgiven for expecting them to be kind of average, but they actually work really well. I love the fact that there's actually kids and stuff too.
So I clicked on the town square tile STL.
Yep.
And I scrolled down. Related products. A notice board.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Groceries. Like
the only thing I will say, like
there's a butchered pig, there's pumpkins, there's lettuce.
Yeah. Like that, there is an entire marketplace there, and the reason I didn't go into them all individually is because there's so much of it. The only thing I will say about this town square tile, like, because they clearly know people are just going to print all of them, like they are charging €18 for the town square STL. It's only $1.80 to buy the thing yourself. The problem, however, is going to be the postage on buying an entire town of that is going to cost you a fortune.
Yeah.
So that's probably where the thinking of, well, maybe I'll just buy the STL for it, I guess. But it does feel very expensive for what it is. It's a 3x3 tile.
It's 3 inch by 3 inch or 3 foot by 3 foot?
No, 3
it's gotta be
by
3
3 inch.
Yeah.
It
it
feels stupidly expensive. Like that seems to me like that's been priced because they don't want people buying the STL. But
or they know that if someone buys the STL, it's because they're going to print 20 of them.
Yes, yeah, that's what I was saying originally.
Oh.
Is that they know that people are going to print a whole heap of them, and therefore they're charging accordingly.
Oh, hey, my light died.
Oh, it did. So there we go. That's the indie. I wanted to kind of look at that because there's been a couple that I've been going to look at, and I kind of come across Tabletop World has been on the list for a while, and I was like, you know what? No, I think I really want to look at this. I'm very curious because I didn't even know that they were running a Kickstarter. Oh, it's just a whole series of cottages. Nice. You were looking at $81 for 2 cottages. And they're looking to ship in April. So this is actually like ready to go pretty much.
Okay.
Oh, it looks like it's kind of like you can actually build it up together yourself. Nice. So it's been designed to be flat packed, shipped, basically.
So that graveyard it's still a hell of a sticker shop, but I just found their conversion, and that's $490 right now.
Yeah. It's very expensive.
It's yeah.
I said that originally that it was very expensive, but it's all pure solid resin.
but it's in money. I understand, not this make believe European money that means nothing to me.
Cream, glue, prime, paint.
What have you been up to, George?
I spent €12. I don't know how much that was in US dollars. And I have found a way to use my leftover remnant reels of filaments.
Okay.
Texture palettes.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Yep.
Because what am I going to do? I'm going to prime them black and then dry brush on to get the brush consistency right and go to town.
Yep.
And when they get covered in too much paint, grab more remnant filament and just use that until it's printed and prime it black and keep going.
You do realize the whole point of those is that you don't have to, like, them being covered in too much paint is almost kind of the point, right?
Right, but if you're going so
you just prime over the top of them again and then keep on going.
Right, but if you keep priming, like let's say I have to prime this 8 times, right? Eventually
it's going to get too soft. Yeah,
eventually paint is going to build up on it and details going to get lost, like say these skulls.
Yep.
So then I go to my file, I say print another one of these, and I use another whatever off my spool of that I'm not going to use anymore of, and prime it black and keep going.
Yep.
So
No, fair enough.
Yeah, I'm printing a third one, and one corner didn't stick, so it's doing the whole little bow up thing. And you know what? I don't care because it's just a dry brush palette.
Yep.
So, but yeah, I spent €12 on that to get, and it comes with a nice little stand to hold them
nice.
too. So,
Yeah.
so I can have them standing stored out of the way, not taking up a lot of space, and yeah. I thought that was a great little discovery, because what do you do with the reel of filament when you know you don't have enough to print something? And
Yeah.
it's so
Print small things.
exactly. So, or print something that you don't care if it's made up of 3 different kinds of filament.
Yeah.
So, that's about it. I'm going to go ahead and mention this because I've come to a decision. I know we talked about this. I don't have it ready to go, folks, but I did get my copy of ISS Vanguard.
Oh,
and
yes.
when I filmed the initial unboxing, when I finished, I said I hated that. And I think part of it was too, as I was going back and looking at it, and the game I backed versus what I got, it's not what I was thinking it was going to be.
George.
So yeah.
Can I get you to clarify what you mean by I hated that? Because it sounds like something that you're not saying.
I did not like the quality of work I did.
Thank you.
So
because I know for a fact that you said that you liked the game. So and it sounded like you were saying I didn't like the game.
Well, so it's from Awakened Realms, and I'm just going to go into this briefly. And my first experience with Awakened Realms was Nemesis Lockdown.
Yep.
And the way that the game looked on the platform for the Kickstarting, it looked like it was kind of an extension of that, but still different.
Mm.
And what I got and what I started looking at, it is not the game I thought it was going to be. So I think there's a little bit of excitement lost there, and in the process of losing that excitement while I was looking at it for the first time, I think affected how I was looking at the game and what I was doing. So
that's fair.
So, but yeah, so I'm actually gonna go through it a little bit and like familiarize with myself with it a little more, and then unbox it again, so to speak.
Yep.
And maybe give it more of a fair opportunity.
So the comment I made to George, and I'm just going to say this outright, the comment I made to George was something along the lines of, you know what I think you should do is keep that original footage, because you talked about how you were kind of in awe at some points at the start, and you kind of like you wasn't really talking clearly. And the thing I'd said to George is keep some of that footage and use it as like a teaser at the start of this is how my first reaction, and then just treat the rest of it like a normal video.
Yeah, because and that was another thing too that I know I said to you is I started getting into it and I started getting overwhelmed by this game.
Yeah,
with all that was there. So,
for me, last Friday, not this Friday just gone, because unfortunately I didn't get to do anything this Friday just gone. I'll talk more about that later. Last Friday, on January 26th, I played the He-Man game finally. And
you mean
I
December
had a great
26th?
time. Sorry?
You said January. Oh, wait. Oh, my God. We're in February already. Jesus.
You are an idiot. Yes, January 26th. I'm just not acknowledging what day that is here. Basically, yeah, I got to play the He-Man game, and I really, really had a good time. We probably played, in my opinion, probably the most irritating of all of the missions, which is the floor is lava, basically.
But you played it because the floor is lava.
Yeah, I mean, that was the one that they wanted to play. It didn't really make much of a difference for me. I was just like, I'm going to play this for the first time. I got asked who I wanted to play with, and I said, well, I wouldn't mind being Tongue Lasher, not realizing at the time that meant that we had to have all bad guys. So they all moaned because they didn't get to play their favorite people. And in fact, one in particular ended up having to play against his favourite character in the game, and he was all very salty about that.
Aww.
Because his favourite character in the game is She-Ra, which is very, very... She-Ra and her minions are really annoying to fight against. They are almost unfair. In the end, I think it was a draw. Was it a draw? No, I think we lost by 1. I don't remember. But I had a great time. It just kind of flowed really nicely. It is kind of what I expected it to be when I was doing my unboxings, because I was like, this just kind of feels like it's going to be Zombicide, but with a different spin. And it is kind of that, but I don't mean that in a negative sense of, oh, well, that's all that this is. It's just like that's what they were trying to be, and that they were giving it a new spin and trying to add something to the engine that wasn't there previously. The power system really does feel like it works. So, yeah, it was nice to actually get a positive experience from that. I have had one instance before where I tried to play it by myself, and I was trying to play it on the floor, and I kind of got overwhelmed at the time, and then I just left it, and then I just talked about going to pull it back out and never actually got around to it. So, as for this Friday, I was supposed to be playing Moonstone, and then the stand on my motorbike snapped before I left home.
Oh, good God! Is that what was the picture of your?
That's
your
why I have a giant wound on my leg. Yes.
So, that's a well. It could be worse.
To be fair, this is also a stand that I was supposed to have been replacing about 6 months ago, and I've been putting it off. I already have the replacement. I just haven't done anything with it yet. I have now. It is now installed again. But I kept on putting it off because it was working and it was fine, and there was no weakness in it that I knew of. But clearly there was, and I just hadn't seen it. I left it.
Could be worse. Your helmet could have been stolen again. So
yeah, I very much like that all the time.
Yeah. So going back to He-Man.
Yep.
You shared a photo, and we won't say that you said I was right, but you said you used contrast paints on that.
He did use... Actually, he used speed paints on them.
He did use speed paints.
So that is literally why I said that you were right, because you said these would be the perfect miniatures for those speed paints you've been trying. And you were right. Like, it works perfectly on them.
Well, it's part of the reason why I got texture palettes is so that I can prime black, do the dry brushing, and then try out some slap chopping.
Yep. So it just works really well with them because they've got enough detail that they will work, but not enough that it gets tedious. CMON have a really nice balance in their detail that they use.
Yeah.
Could they use more detail? Yeah, but I don't think they'd be any better if they did.
Well, and there's a fine line between, a Space Marine, that you put together, you paint, and it's part of this, collection, or a board game that some people may not even paint because they just want the game. They don't even want to mess with that. So
I haven't painted mine yet.
Yeah.
In fact, most of mine are sitting in the garage.
Yeah. There's a fine line there of, what is enough detail. I started painting my Cthulhu stuff, and the detail on that I think is brilliant for a board game miniature.
Yeah.
So
the problem with detail is that if you use too much detail, then sometimes it can start looking like it's not what it's supposed to be as well.
Yeah.
And the other thing too in the case of He-Man, because He-Man specifically didn't have that. It was an 80s cartoon. It didn't have that much detail. So I think they found the right balance there.
Well, and then there's the next thing too. Like these board games, they already cost a lot of money. Yeah. Can you imagine how much they cost if they actually had, put in the detail they could put into these miniatures?
Yeah.
So,
otherwise, I've been working on some Entropy City stuff. I have some new tokens that I've been designing. One of the things that I've been wanting to do with the game for a while is introducing Molotov cocktails and spike strips, like what the police roll over on to try and get the... So I've designed a 4-inch by 1-inch token, which takes up most of, but not all of the road, so that there is still maneuverability. It just makes it really hard to get around it, but not impossible.
I love the idea of the introduction of Molotov cocktails.
It made sense the moment I started talking about it. It made sense.
Absolutely, yeah. It's
none of them are tested in game at this stage. But basically, the thought with the spike strips is you have to have 2 miniatures a certain distance, and then it's laid out between them with maybe you're able to like manipulate it and turn it within so much of each miniature. So if you're like here, then maybe there's like an inch difference that you can like just to straighten it up. With the Molotov cocktails, there is a throwing range. When it impacts, it's a 50 mil token, and in the following turn, it extends out to a 70 mil token, and then it goes away. Is the way that I'm testing it at this stage. So we will see. The idea for me with the Molotov cocktails is supposed to be that you can either throw them at people or that you can throw them directly at the ground. So you're either using them as a trap or as a weapon, one or the other. And I would like to think that there would be genuine reasons to do both. Obviously, throwing it at the ground is going to be a lot easier than throwing it at a person. So maybe you don't want to slow down and you'll just do that because it'll be easier. Or maybe you just really want to get this person... Because if you throw it at the ground, maybe they will be able to get out of the way of it before it burns them. But yeah, that's where things are sitting at this stage. I need to do another round of testing and see how they go. But I've also completely redesigned the tokens that I had designed already. Just purely because on the printer that I have, which is a fairly cheap printer... I mean, it wasn't cheap, but it was cheaper than a lot of others. The graphics that I had designed don't turn out great, so I've basically just grayed them out and made them black and white, essentially. Just to make them look nicer for me. Obviously, this is all prototype stuff, so it doesn't really matter, but I kind of wanted them to look nicer, so I've just grayed them out. When it comes to, like, obviously having a real game, then yes, I will have proper real tokens, but we're not at that point yet, so...
Talk nerdy to me.
So this is something that I had initially planned to discuss last time, because it was the first episode. Well, it was one of the first episodes of the year, and I kind of thought, like, people talk about setting goals and stuff. Let's just have a discussion about that. Now, not just because like hobby goals and like it's not so much it's the new year, you have to set a goal, but even just to the point of being realistic with your goals, trying to avoid overwhelming yourself with expectations, just general conversation, like most of these topics have been. For me, the big one last year was to get my game to a point where to continue development of the game and get it to a certain point, and obviously I went much further with that goal than I had actually envisioned. I haven't specifically set a goal for this year on the game because I towards the end of last year I got to a point of like I'm of almost burnout, so I deliberately kind of pulled back a little bit, and then I'm slowly starting to work on it again. I think for an Entropy City stuff, I think the big thing will be that I want to actually make an attempt to start learning how to use things like Blender so that I can at least find an answer to the question of whether it's something I could do myself or not. Obviously, if it's not, then I will need to find new answers for that. Not that the game's ready for miniatures or anything, but I need to be able to find out where my limits are without burning myself out. But otherwise, like things like building new armies and da-da-da-da, part of the problem with this hobby, quite frequently, is shiny syndrome. And we've discussed shiny syndrome before as well. So... Have you you haven't really been painting a lot over the last 12 months?
I haven't been painting a lot over the last couple years.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to...
I'm just curious if you plan to change that or not.
I'm going to try to.
This. It's just a question.
I'm going to try to. But so this is something I started doing several years ago because I used to be one of those people. And I discovered something, and I looked at it, and it's actually it's a horrible cycle that we put ourselves through by sitting down and saying New Year's resolutions, new things I'm going to do. By doing that, you actually set yourself up for more failure.
Yep.
And or retard yourself in what you're actually attempting to do.
Yep.
So that said, I'm just going to keep doing what I've been doing. If I paint more, I paint more. If I play more, I play more.
Yep.
I'm not going to set any sort of goal. Now, that being said, with what you are doing with, design, development, creation of your own game, you kind of need to do that. I mean, you need to have like something to move forward to. Otherwise, you won't move forward and you'll stagnate and stall out, and then your great idea, which it is, doesn't come to fruition. So
if I ever wanted to become a real thing, I have to work on it, essentially. Yeah.
So beyond that, I mean, no, not really. Like,
there was no wrong answer to that. It was just a question. The thing and this isn't like, let's discuss our hobby goals. It's just talking about the subject in general. I just thought this was a good place to start.
Yeah.
Although I'm not setting a specific goal, and yes, the idea of sculpting is there, I think what I want to try and do more of this year is when I want to play other games, it's trying to play them to give myself a breather, which is basically what I've been doing for the last few months. I needed a breather. Yep. This is my chance to do some other games. So at the moment, like, there's quite a few things that we're kind of looking at. We're looking at a game called The Doomed, which is an Osprey game, so it's miniature agnostic and so on and so forth. It's kind of based in the future of, like, it was a very advanced civilization that's kind of collapsed into this feudal state, and they're facing these Lovecraftian-style horrors, and you're just trying to survive / destroy them. And it's called The Doomed because that's what you are. You are the doomed. You've been left behind, basically.
So I will say this, because you mentioned that, because I think it does have a great concept, and I have all of it. I do want to have an intimate relationship with the rules for Massive Darkness 2.
Yep.
And get a campaign for it going, even if it's just me playing 4 characters, like an ongoing campaign, because there's a couple of things where it's just like, they're designed for an ongoing campaign in order to play the expansion. And there's some great ones. Like, there's the one that was the initial launch on the Kickstarter for Massive Darkness 2. But then there's the Rainbow Bridge, where you're essentially fighting evil Care Bears. And then there's, the 4 Horsemen, where, you're fighting the 4 Horsemen. And then the last one, which when I was doing the all-in on it, I was just like, oh God, this one's really expensive. Do I really want to do this? And it was the Dragon one. And I'm glad I did, because I don't know if you remember, if you watched the unboxing I did for it, that Dragon miniature is like this. Like, it is damn near as big as like the Galacticus from Zombicide and the Cthulhu bigature for the Cthulhu game. Like, it is a huge miniature. So, like,
hence postage being what it was.
So,
or is it before the postage increases?
That was before the postage. Postage increases, and I remember we talked about that because people were flipping out over the Galacticus one, and so, like, there's some people, like, they do some things and they understand things about the grand scheme. And the one thing I've done is I was a logistics manager. I know what it costs to get things around the world. And I'll tell you this right now, as a private party, what you pay for shipping for one of these all-ins, what you actually pay is a fraction of what it would actually cost you.
Yeah, they are absorbing some of that in the price of the product.
Well, no, they actually aren't absorbing anything. I'll tell you this right now, they aren't absorbing anything, because a company will get breaks in shipping.
Oh, okay, never mind. I get what you're saying.
Because if I go in and say, ship this 30-pound box, okay, well, that's going to be $60.
Yeah.
If CMON says, I'm shipping this 30-pound box,
but
that's going to be $60. I'm shipping 2,000 of them. Oh, well, that'll be $20.
Yeah, because you're paying for the container at that point.
Mm-hmm.
So,
it's not just container,
and then you can divide it between everybody.
It's doorstep service too.
Yeah.
So, like, UPS, FedEx, DHL. I don't know what's your big parcel service in Australia? A company will pay less with the contract because they're gonna be constantly giving you money, so you're gonna charge them less, so they ship more with you and spend more money.
Yeah.
You as the individual, they got to get it all up front. So, and when people are freaking out about how much this gigantic, what 18-inch tall miniature was going to cost to ship, and everyone's freaking out, like, no, that's actually cheap.
Yeah, it was.
So, yeah.
Goals for the year. I probably should have brought this out in hobby time. This is Burrows and Badgers.
Oh,
That
you're
we looked at last episode.
Yeah,
I bought some of it.
Did you?
Yep. I did say I'd been fighting it for a while. I mean, one of the things that I tried to do last year was, and this is a goal that I had set towards the end of last year, was trying to control my spending more. Because part of the problem I've always had with this podcast is that it tempted me to buy things all the time. And I make the joke that I'm doing that to other people, because I've legitimately had people criticize me for it. I'm just going to call them out. JP has quite frequently, jokingly had a go at me about the fact that, oh, you've made me want to buy this. Like it's my fault. and it's a joke. It's intended as a joke. But I do it to myself all the time too. And I kind of, I had that a moment where I realized, I'm very ADHD in the way that I buy things. So I was trying very, very hard not to. And I went to a point of, I think it was like 6 or 7 months before buying any miniatures. That's the first miniatures I've bought for ages. And it was an impulse, but it's not an impulse that I regret, because they're just really, really pretty.
I was...
It's 100% something I hyper-focused on, though.
So let's see. Last year, I backed Death May Die, Fear of the Unknown, and Mordred. Mordred? 2 CMON games. And I thought, I'm doing really good. Yep. I've only done 2 games.
I've done more than that, but not much more.
That was on Kickstarter. And then frickin' Game Found had to do the stretch pay, and then Awakened Realms had to do... So, there's another Witcher game. I did the Nemesis, whatever the hell that is. And then, I don't know why I backed this. Yes, you're not wrong. It's called Dragon Eclipse, and it's a 2v2, like a head-to-head game, and it's Pokemon-esque inspired, where you have monsters. So it's like, it's like Super Fantasy Brawl meets Pokemon meets a reputable company.
Okay, that sounds interesting.
So,
going back to the actual goals, though, I mean, I think if you have a project coming up, setting yourself some goals will definitely help you achieve that. I mean, the big thing, obviously, is I have a tournament coming up in June. I need to get this army finished by then. This is the cliche goal that is set by everybody all the time, especially if you're in the competitive war space where you feel like you have to have a new army every so many months. And whilst I'm not going to sit here and say that I recommend that, because I really don't, just because like the money that you end up spending, it depends on how you feel about it, but I don't see how you get the value back on it. Expanding an army that you have and finding a way for the army you have to be competitive, I personally find way more value out of than buying whatever is the new hotness every couple of months. But setting goals can, like you kind of touched on this, they can be a little bit of a trap sometimes. Because if you set a goal that's unrealistic, like, I want to have every miniature I own painted before the end of the year, and I'm not allowed to buy anything until then. It's never going to happen, because I have more miniatures than I could physically paint in 12 months.
I was going to say, I need to change that from year to decade. So...
and 2, there is no way that you are not going to buy more miniatures before the end of the year, unless you just physically don't have the money for it.
Yeah. I'm actually already in talks of getting that Fire Slayer now. So,
Yep.
um,
I think setting yourself goals on ways
so,
to improve yourself is probably the goal.
yeah.
Me.
So, and I'll go back to the I got to finish this army for a tournament, right? So,
Yep.
I got caught in one of those goals.
Mm-hmm.
Buddy of mine, he was a 30K tourney up Adepticon, and he was doing World Eaters, and and he owned a game store, so it's like he could spend a lot of his time in the store working on his army while still running the store.
Yep.
That worked out for him. I was unemployed at the time, so that also worked out for me. So I literally, the two of us for 50 hours in a week, so 100 hours, and we barely got his army ready for Adepticon.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's like, to set a goal like that for yourself, that is suicide for the hobby.
It can, especially if you're doing it that late. Yeah.
So yeah, and
I mean, it's all well and good to be really passionate about something and force your way through. This is something that happens in the cosplay scene quite frequently as well. Like, I don't know the last time I heard of a cosplayer that wasn't still putting their costume together the night before the con, unless they're wearing one that they've already made. But that just doesn't happen.
How many times have you seen those TikToks or reels where it's just like, I'm at the con, I'm getting put on, and I'm doing a couple last minute things before I walk the floor. Like, there is no. If someone is able to actually get something done 100%, so they don't have to do something the night before or the day of, they're not the one actually doing it.
That is a point.
They're having someone else do it for them, and they're just showing up with it.
Yeah. Now, part of the problem as well, especially in the I want to build an army and I want it to be done by April, like setting those sort of unrealistic goals is what leads people to burnout as well. Because there's you kind of touched on, like, there's a darker side to setting yourself goals. If you're not careful, you will burn yourself out by trying to force yourself to do things.
Yep.
I'm not sitting here and saying that you shouldn't set goals. You should, but what you should be doing is setting realistic goals. Like, I want to have this squad done. If you have an army that needs to be done by a certain time, give yourself time to do it, or start with an army that's mostly done and you just need to finish, perhaps.
Here's a good example, right?
To do a full army anymore, I just don't.
Yeah,
not mass battle anyway.
Yeah, so here's a good example, right? Because I've got my most recent two, my Custodes and my trees. The Custodes are at the point right now where if I say, what is it, February, so March, like May, end of May, I need to have my Custodes finished.
You would probably get that.
That's a reasonable goal to set, because I have the biggest part done. I've done the masking on the weapons. I've gotten the time consuming, because you have to wait for every single step of it to be dry before you move to the next step for that chrome paint. I've got that done. So now I'm just on the detail brushwork.
Yeah.
That's the next step. And and it's Custodes, so there's not a lot of them. The trees, if I were to do something like that, I'd need longer, because they're still only primed. I've just only finished magnetizing the bases. I still need to print a case for them. I still need to,
There's also another side of this that we haven't even touched on yet.
Yeah.
Which is that most of us also have a real life to consider. Now, granted, some of these people are out there, like, don't have to concern themselves with that, and that's fine. Like, some people are just really, really lucky to live in a really environment where they don't have to be concerned about, like, maybe their hobby is their work. Like, maybe that's just the way it is. Like, maybe they are lucky enough to have a big enough Twitch stream or a big enough whatever that they have managed to monetize that, and that becomes their thing. Granted, a lot of those people end up burning out in the hobby eventually and have to go back to a real job. Not everybody, but quite a few people do.
Well, I was just gonna say, we just as a hobby had a guy do that here recently. Wasn't it Luke's Hobby or something like that?
Maybe.
I see.
Geek Gaming Scenics has gone back to real work for similar reasons, or at least the founder of it. So it's definitely something to keep in mind. While George looks that up, because burnout is the thing that you will experience at some point. If you haven't, it will happen.
Yeah, it was a content creator for the hobby, and he went to go back and get an actual job because he said, well, and it's exactly, he was getting burnout of having to make content.
Yeah, and that's where I was going.
Have content that is monetized for him to survive off of, and that was his issue. So it's a double-edged sword of, if you're
lucky enough to be able to do it as a hobby, then it also kind of forces you to do a very specific sort of hobby.
Mm-hmm.
You don't really get to do what you want. You have to do what YouTube will get attention for, or whatever.
And then you run the risk of the hobby that you enjoy
becoming your work.
becoming unenjoyable.
Yep.
So
you and I also kind of have, like, obviously, like, there's real life. We both have full-time jobs and stuff. Like, we don't make any money off this. But we also both have things going on that most people probably don't as well. You're working on your house at the same time, which is a huge commitment, which also means you don't always have time for hobby because all of your energy is put into that. And I'm in the middle of developing a game, and quite frankly, when it comes to that, if this is ever going to be a real thing, I can't afford to put all of my time and energy into building a brand new Space Marine army or learning to play a brand new game that's mass battle. I can get away with skirmish size stuff because it's not as much of a commitment.
And I was going to say too, there's been a huge trend change too of, the skirmish size.
Yes.
Like Kill Team has gotten huge.
Yep.
Blood Bowl in my area is huge because it's that skirmish size.
It's the more popular gaming size at this stage and has been for a while.
Well, and I think when you're looking at, here in the States, the cost of living has just gotten to the point of, just because oh yeah, I make this much a year, but you have to spend, 3/4 of that on your living. Yep. That doesn't leave a lot towards, hobby. And so spending the exaggeration of the comic, oh, it's a 2,000 point army. I thought you said you spent $2,000 on it. Well, no, that's you actually spent $5,000 on it. That's it's got to the point to where that's not a feasible part of the hobby anymore. So
look, some people are really lucky, and some people can afford to do that, and I'm not going to sit here and criticize them for the fact that that's where they want to put their money. It's great that you have something that you want to put your money towards that you're passionate about. But most of us aren't in that boat.
And then once I am
on a relatively tight income. I have to be really careful with my spending. To the point where the reason I tightened my belt is because I needed to tighten my belt. I was getting the amount of things that I brought and never used was just getting stupidly ridiculous. Anyway, we kind of got off track, but I think we've kind of touched on the basis of what I was trying to get at. Setting goals and gaming, whether they're for games or hobby, is good, but you need to be realistic about it, and you need to consider that not all goals are going to end well if you're not careful about your own health and stuff.
Tournaments, demos, conventions, that kind of stuff.
So, we're starting with the Melbourne Figure Painters Collective. First things first, they have moved. They're no longer at the library. Their new location where they're meeting is the Gaming Arena, which is on Barkers Road in Coburn North. Still from 12 to 5. Still on the last Sunday of every month. Their next meeting is on the 25th of February. I still haven't gotten there yet. Again, I'm intending to get there this time. I know I've said that a few times at this stage, but I am trying to get there. It just, things got out of hand and I never got there. There's a new Drop Fleet Commander tournament coming at Firestorm Games in Cardiff. It's happening on the 3rd of March. ArcFest is still coming up. I spoke about this recently. It takes place at the Sandown Racecourse in Melbourne on April 27th and 28th. This is the first time Arc has really ventured outside of Infinity, at least as far as outside of 40k, as far as I know. And they're trying to make this like an actual proper tabletop event, kind of like what CanberraCon is. So you've got Infinity, you've got Age of Sigmar, you've got Necromunda, you've got Marvel Crisis Protocol. Like, there's several different tournaments all happening at the same time. And I really think that this is something that we really want to get behind, because we want to have a proper tabletop con. PAX tries to be that, but it's not that. It's an attached thing to the side, and very clearly video games gets most of the attention, which is fine. I love PAX, but it would be nice to get like a proper tabletop con going. Nana Wanning's Wargame Association has a Saga tournament coming up at the Blackburn RSL. Takes place on the 19th of May from 9 in the morning till 5 o'clock at night. And here is a big one. Now, the next event that I'm going to talk about is already sold out, and it has a wait list. So why am I talking about this? Well, a group of people have gotten together and they have decided to run a Warhammer 40k tournament for 3rd edition. Yeah. There is a percentage of you out there that really want this event to go well, because you want them to do this with other games. Everybody that cries and screams about how the other versions of the games were better wants this to be successful. This is taking place from the 9th till the... it's taking place on the 22nd of June at the address is 9 to 11 The Esplanade at North Shore. It's on the 22nd and 23rd of June at 5 o'clock. It's Thirdapalooza, the Eye of Terror. If you're passionate about if you're passionate about Oldhammer and you have been aching to get a game of the old version of the game, this is the event you want to be following. And I would argue that you probably want to get your name on that waitlist, even though realistically you probably won't get a spot at this stage. But I'd still probably suggest that if you are one of those people, I am not one of these people, just for the record. But if you are, you want to get your name on this. Because if this is successful, it will happen again, and other things will happen, and it will show that there is a percentage of people out there that want this to happen. So I'm kind of surprised. This sold out really quickly, to the point where I was very surprised.
Yeah, that's like, I could understand if, like, you know, if it was Warhammer 7th edition, like, you know, like, break out those armies, get excited again because, you know, it's back, you know, let's get a 7th, you know, because, you know, I don't know what the rule sets are like for all the faction chats. So, but yeah, I think that's really cool that, you know, it's almost a way of sticking it to Games Workshop of like, all this new crap we've done. No, we want this. We want this old janky stuff.
Yeah, it does kind of feel a little bit like, yep, nah, we don't care. This is what we want. We want to thank Valhalla Hobby for sponsoring us. I say this every episode. Valhalla Hobby have looked after us really well. They are the only reason that we can afford to have gettingtabled.com. If there's ever a story that we have covered that you want to look at the details on, the links for all of those stories are only ever found in 2 places. Patreon and on gettingtabled.com. And it's only ever the current episode that has the links for the story. So that will be updated at some stage later today once the episode goes live. So by the time you're listening to this, it's all there. As for Valhalla Hobby, they are a gaming store based in Verona, Wisconsin. They have your regulars, like they have your Warhammer 40k stuff, they have your Age of Sigmar stuff, they have D&D stuff. Apparently they don't sell a lot of it, but they do have it. They have Magic the Gathering, but they have a real passion for the niche indie side of this industry, which is what got us together to begin with. It's the reason that they reached out to us, because it's what we're passionate about as well. So they have Bushido, they have TT Combat stuff, they have Blacksite Studio stuff, they have access to all of this sort of stuff, as well as your regulars. I would highly recommend reaching out to them. They do have a website, valhallahobby.com. If you use the code TABLED on your first order, you'll get 5% off any order over $100. It is a 1 year's code. Apparently it always was, but that somehow got missed at some point. They also have amazing prices, and I mean genuinely. We started shopping there before this happened because they were the cheapest that we could find. So we highly recommend them, and we feel very comfortable recommending them, especially if you're in the US for obvious reasons. Otherwise, thank you very much, George. We have no gentleman to thank this week, so I'm just going to thank you instead.
Whoa. I'm being thanked.
Where can people...
Please come and support us on patreon.com/gettingtabled. It is $2 a month. That goes into keeping the lights on. That pays for the website, the SoundCloud, anything we use that is out of our control for storage and content and whatnot. That's what those funds are used for. It doesn't go into our pockets. Of course, you can find us at gettingtabled.com. I just went there and looked again. It is a good-looking site. It's where, we have links to all these news articles, the videos, and everything we produce. Of course, you can find us on facebook.com/gettingtabled. That's where we go for social media stuff. We post the links to the videos and stories and whatnot on that Facebook page. We're very reachable through that. Of course, you can find all the videos we do on youtube.com/gettingtabled. That's where the video version of this podcast, unboxings, and everything else we do goes up on YouTube. You can email us at gettingtabled@gmail.com. Got any questions, anything you want us to know about? Email us. We'd love to get an email from you about anything. We've got a Discord. The link is in the description. We have a X and Instagram at gettingtabled. They're there. We haven't really used them much. We should probably work on that. And then Bruce has a Twitch that he's doing casually, which is twitch.tv/JasonTheBruce. Keep an eye out for that. You might see him doing something. And then, of course, Bruce has another little side project, youtube.com/toyreel. Is there anything else that I missed?
No, that's pretty much everything. Description, links and everything is in the description for all of our socials. Please give us a follow, give us a subscribe on whatever platforms it is that you're using. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
For listening to Getting Tabled. Music used in this podcast was created by Eric Matyas at soundimage.org.
Bruce is going to say play more games.